Hello and welcome. My name is Samuel Ray, and this is s-factor-sam. So this is Raceroom Racing Experience, or just Raceroom for short. I recently started playing this on stream, actually, and my new stream time is going to be Thursdays and Fridays, I believe, evenings, right around 6:45. That way I can take part in, at least on Friday, I'll try to take part in the weekly events in this game. But it's a really fun sim. Got a lot of good track variety, car variety, and the only downside to me is that there's not a lot of cars that have H-pattern shifters, but that's a side point. So in the last stream, I played the MX5 Cup, and so this was from my qualifying laps. This was the best lap I got. We're going to look at this real quick, and then we're going to look at the race itself. Let's take a look at this. So I was playing this in cockpit view myself with my steering wheel. I have a Logitech G923, the 3-pedal set. Now, I learned through this that the MX5 Cup car, the Miata, uses IMSA specs, so it no longer has a stick shift, it has sequential stick. I don't have sequential stick, I have an H-pattern shifter, so I had to use my paddle shifters instead. But it still handles great. It's a Miata, you know? Excellent balance, near 50-50 weight distribution from front to rear, and just an overall really fun rear-wheel drive experience. Not too tail-happy, squirrely in the rear and all that kind of stuff, because it's not super torquey. So I started kind of figuring out apexes in rotation a little bit better here. I do use Racing Line as kind of a guideline, but I don't follow it religiously, like especially when there's other cars on the road. I kind of prefer games where you have the option of choosing only the guidelines for the corners, but this doesn't have that, at least as far as I know. I'm still figuring out all the settings. But yeah, so this was my best qualifying lap, which determines where you are placed in the starting grid. And this race did have a standing start. Yeah. Yeah, also the sound design in this game is pretty satisfying too. And this chase cam, not gonna lie, it's pretty good. I don't use it though, because, you know, I use the steering wheel. But yeah, that was my best lap. And now we're gonna go take a look at the replay from the race itself. And here we go. So I got to start sort of towards the back of the grid. As you can see right here, I was third from the back though. You know, for my first race, I guess it wasn't all that bad, you know? So we're gonna watch this from the external camera. That way we can get a good view of all the action. Like I said, it was a standing start, so I really had to work on my launch here. I was in a blue and orange, so you can see me right there, kind of on the left. Well, right in the middle, really. I took that turn a little too wide, but that was fine because it was a chicane there. And yeah, I lost some places. I still was working on my launches, and I still will be for a while, to be completely honest. So I was second to last, and so I had to focus really on just gaining time by driving solid. I figured there would be some chaos at some point that would help me gain some points, but at that point I was just kind of driving on instinct. You see, I was gradually gaining on them because they were too busy battling each other. So I was just focusing on my line. And not hitting people, because this game runs on a penalty points system. So you have, like, every race has a set cap of infraction points, and Every time you do an infraction, you gain a point, and then once you hit the maximum amount of points, you either take a big penalty or you're disqualified. I think you're disqualified, if I remember correctly. There was another race I tried after this where I was 1 point away from disqualification, so then I had to slow down and drive extra cautious. And see, there was a spin out there, 2 cars that spun out that I swerved through. So I'm actually going to pause it here real quick, and we're going to go back and we're going to check this out from the chase cam, because that was a highlight moment for me in this race. They spun, and then I had to predict which direction that they were going to be moving in. And that was from first person. That was crazy, and you can see a short on my channel for that. But that was actually a pretty hype moment that was clipped by a viewer. And so that's when it really solidified in my mind in the race. You just gotta focus on driving well and wait for people up front to make mistakes. You can gain time gradually, gain ground by driving well. There, I went way too wide. But I was still able to cut on the inside, although I lacked the momentum to prevent the overtake. So I simply had to let them go through. But if you defend too aggressively, then you'll cause infractions, and when collisions happen between you and another player, regardless of if you're at fault, you'll take an infraction point. So you have to really know when to defend and when to give way. Fortunately, in this one, I think it was like 40 infraction points, so it wasn't too terribly bad. Now, I don't remember if I got an infraction point there because that part of the track is green, which usually denotes that you can let at least 2 tires go off. But I think the trick is if more than 2 of your tires go off track in the green sections, you're kind of just jacked. You take the penalty. Games like Forza Motorsport, they have a much more harsh penalty system, which docks you time. So it adds time to your overall performance. And that can be the difference in gaining or losing places at the end of the race. Personally, I kind of prefer that system just because it attempts to discern who was at fault in a collision. And that way, sometimes, it's not perfect, but sometimes it only penalizes the actual offender, which I appreciate when it happens, when it works. So during this part of the race, I did see that there was someone behind me, but I saw that there was enough of a gap, so I just had to make sure that I drove well so I wouldn't get past. Cool thing about the Miata 2 is that since it has such a good weight distribution, it likes to rotate pretty easily. Now that can be a bad thing and you drive too recklessly and you spin out. But if you're able to manipulate it well with some good left foot braking, manipulating weight transfer. Now there, see, I saw him getting closer, but then I also saw that he was going a little too wide, so I was able to widen the gap again. And you really just have to focus on driving a good line. I need to get better at gradual braking though, instead of hitting it hard. The brake pedal I have has so much resistance though, it makes it kind of hard to do at times, but I'm kind of figuring it out. Now you can tell the person behind me is really trying to catch up, but I'm just focusing on driving well and gearing well, and taking care of my shifts well, and carrying more momentum through the turns. Trying not to curve it too much, so you can see how that affects the suspension. You see, he is gaining ground, but I'll just focus on my line, and then he cuts it too wide. And at this point, since I saw how close he was, what I did was I went to the middle of the road until the turn, made it harder for him to pass. That was a technique I actually learned online, where all you want to do when defending sometimes is just go to the middle of the road, and it'll make it harder for the person behind you to know how to pass, right? Because you can more easily defend if they go for whichever side. And then I waited until the turn and then tried to take the most optimal line I could. And you see, there he was going for the inside, so I just let him go. And then he went way too wide. He dive bombed too deep, and I was able to take advantage of that and retake the spot. I think they call that a switchback. And that was satisfying too. Saw a gap, went for it. I just let him take it and focused on driving a good line. And I took the inside on the second part. And then you see how big the gap got there. So then I just had to focus on driving well. Went towards the outside again. Now, he did get the pass there. And you had to give props for that. So then I just had to focus again on my driving. Don't push too hard to try and catch up. Just keep your technique. And see, he went wide, went off track again. And then, while trying to recover, went off track again. And from that point, it was curtains. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go, not there, to the person behind me. We're gonna see how that played out. See? Went way too wide. And then there I am behind. And then he spun out. And that's all there was to it. So again, you just gotta drive well. Just focus on your technique. Put some pressure on, and the person in front of you might mess up. So not only did I get to maintain position at one point with a switchback, but I was able to, even after losing the position, just drive well and wait for him to make the mistake, and then wasn't anywhere close. From there, I was able to relax and just focus on driving well. And since I'm brand new to the game, I'm not exactly going for podium finishes yet. I don't think I'm going to get there. Not quite yet. Top 3 is not going to be easy to do, especially as a newbie to this. I've mostly been playing racing games and like the middle grounds between game and simulator, like Forza Motorsport. Yeah. And so, it's there's going to be a growing period. Just gotta pick the right cars to drive, the right series to focus on. I do wish there was more that let me use my H-pattern shifter. Forza Motorsport allows me to use H-pattern shifter in almost all cars, which it's crazy. But the simulators, like, they rarely. Oh, I totally screwed up my shift there too. Like, I don't know what I did there. I just completely lost it and almost came to a complete stop. So at that point, I kind of knew I wasn't going to be able to catch the person in front of me, but I at least didn't want to get caught up to by the person behind. So had to get back in the game. But the force feedback in this game is great. The sound design is great. Very informative, both of it. The visual feedback is great. It runs so smoothly, even though my computer's an old one. And I really appreciate that. I want to try getting into this in VR again. Mostly because, I don't know, I just really, having the spatial awareness, being able to turn your head and kind of trick the brain into seeing everything in a three-dimensional space, it does improve my spatial awareness quite a bit. I don't know why I went so wide in that turn. I just had to get it back together. But yeah, for my first race, this was actually quite fun. I didn't expect to have those moments in the early part of the race of actual close racing, and then, racing that opponent there in the matching livery was, it was actually quite fun. It was a nice back and forth. I prevented an overtake with a switchback. Then they earned a good overtake, but then they got a little too ahead of themselves and went off stage and then spun out trying to get back. I said stage. I've been doing too much rally stuff. Went off track and then spun off after trying to get back on track. But yeah, I definitely want to play more of this. I bought the online pack, which should give most of what I need, or what I need to take part in most of the racing series that are going to be featured through this season of the game. So, and it was like $26, something like that, 26 and change. Wasn't too bad. So I want to try out some more super tours, and I hope they bring in some more regular touring cars. I would love to race in some DTM Classics, though. DTM Classics actually have H-pattern shifters, so that would totally be my favorite. Front wheel car, high power front wheel car with H-pattern shifter, literally the perfect racing series for me. So here's hoping. Yeah, that's Race Room. So let's see. Not quite at the end of the track, but I don't recall anything particularly exciting happened for the rest of the race. So I'll do a couple of skip forwards. I think for the rest of the race, I just focused on getting my shifts right and keeping my momentum and just perfecting my braking point and my turns. That turn, that's a second gear turn. You have to shift down quite a bit to take that one well. Now there is a setting for racing line that's called was it opposed? Self and opposed or something like that? I want to test it out and see what that's about, because I don't know how exactly that works. If that's something that would, maybe it would help. I'm entirely not sure. I still have yet to get good at identifying braking points in windy tracks like this, because the visuals just aren't as, there's not as much visual feedback on that, or at least maybe I'm not good at reading track design quite as much. I'm not sure yet. I know, like I've been playing a NASCAR game on my Switch, NASCAR Rivals, and in that, I have kind of been using the, went way off track there. So I just, that was kind of a bad cut. I don't know why that happened either. So what I was saying was, in the NASCAR game, it's mostly ovals and stuff like that, so it's a good starting point for figuring out how to determine braking points, right? Finding reference points for that. Maybe not so much braking, but for turning, right? And so I was able to kind of start figuring out how to use markings on the walls and stuff like that to determine where I need to start my turn in order to take efficient turns around those big wide curves that ovals have. And so maybe I need to start applying that to this, particularly using the stripes on the sides of the track in order to determine where I need to start braking. Problem is, not every track follows the same design cues, I don't think. And I don't have the time to repetitively run laps around these tracks and memorize braking points, right? So it's a little hard. I'm glad that there are assist tools like Racing Line. You just have to remember if you're using them, don't follow them so closely when there's other people around you. You need to be more mindful of the other racers so that you don't collide with them, because you could ruin your own race, you could ruin their race, and in real life racing, you could also endanger the both of you. Racing's a no-contact sport for the most part. So there are some series that are okay with a little bit of, paint swapping, but as long as you're not actually colliding, right? Because that is kind of dangerous. And in this, once someone in front of you gets super far ahead, you're not going to catch up unless they make a huge mistake. So, that's just how it goes. But I really enjoy driving. I always have enjoyed driving. It's just recently that I got more into racing itself as a sport. I enjoyed racing games as a kid, but that was more the arcadey Need for Speed style games, and the off-the-wall, fantasy or futuristic type racing games that don't even have to care about realism, right? But I do remember when Need for Speed was mostly a circuit kind of racer, actually, but with obviously not super realistic physics, because that wasn't even possible back then. One of the Need for Speeds I played the most growing up was Need for Speed 2 with my dad. We had it on PC, and so I played that a ton with him. And that was a long time ago. That was like, geez, I want to say sometime around late 90s, probably late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember when Need for Speed 2 came out, actually, but regardless, good fun. And then I kind of dropped off of it after a bit, and now I'm back into it, but leaning more towards the semi-realistic to realistic titles. And that's it. That's the end of the race. So I know the exciting parts were kind of front-loaded and in the middle, but that's how it goes. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm gonna try doing more stuff like this, making use of the replay function after my stream races. And please, oh no, game froze. Yikes. Yeah, okay. So we're just gonna wrap it up here. Yeah. Oh wait, never mind. It's loaded. Haha. All right. Yeah, that's it for me here. Boy, the scuff factor is really kicking in. That's just gonna be forever a part of my brand, I guess. All right, this is Samuel Ray, and this is s-factor-sam. And if you enjoy this kind of content, give me your feedback. If you know any ways that I can use the tools in Raceroom, or any external tools you may know of that could help make this even better, let me know. I like to go into the profile too here real quick. Let me race history. So this was the race in question that we just did, right? Yeah. And so I qualified there. No, here. And so I gained 2 positions in that race. And I think I want to focus mostly just on getting, getting good results in terms of gaining more positions based on where you start. So you run the qualifying lap, you can establish a general area where you're supposed to start. Then I just gotta make sure I don't botch the launch, and then I can try to gain at least 1 place and finish in a higher position. Because as you can see here, top 5, they finished exactly where they started. But me and the people right in front and behind me gained places. So that was actually a pretty good performance, right? And so that's kind of what I want to aim for from here for a while, you know, just do better, finish farther ahead than where you started. And from there, you can then gradually work your way up to getting top 3 placements. So that's the goal. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure you do all that good YouTube stuff, like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. If you want to see me improve, come along with me on this journey. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. That's it for me. This has been Samuel Ray. I'll see you next time.